Apple's iPhone Air, it was this incredible piece of engineering, but almost nobody actually bought one. So what happened? Well, rumors about its successor, the iPhone Air 2, are flying around. And today, we're going to dig into the leaks and see if Apple finally learned its lesson for the next version of its super thin phone. But look, before we get to what's coming next, we've got to talk about the past. There's this big mystery hanging over the whole product line, right? Why on earth did a phone with so much incredible tech inside just flop? Okay, so let's get into it. To figure out where the iPhone Air is headed, we first need to pinpoint exactly what went wrong with the original. And don't get me wrong, on paper, this thing was an absolute marvel. I mean, just 5.6 millimeters thick. And it was packing the super powerful A19 Pro chip. Apple somehow created a device that was unbelievably sleek and crazy fast. It really blew a lot of minds. But for all of that amazing design, all that performance, its success was totally torpedoed by one single massive weakness, a decision that honestly had huge consequences. The problem? It was pretty simple, really. It only had one camera on the back. In today's market, where everyone's obsessed with phone photography, that lack of versatility was a total deal breaker for a lot of people. And that led directly to demand just plummeting. There were even reports that Apple had to cut production way back. So the big question is, how is Apple going to fix this? Well, that brings us right to the heart of the new rumors. It looks like we're about to see a dual-camera rescue mission for the iPhone Air 2. This juicy bit of info comes from a pretty well-known leaker on Weibo, Digital Chat Station. And they're claiming that Apple is seriously looking at a new model with, you guessed it, not one, but two high-res cameras. This, right here, could be the game changer this phone desperately needs. And really, this is the whole story. This is the core of the upgrade. Jumping from one camera to two, that directly fixes the #1 complaint about the original. It completely changes what this phone is all about. And hey, we're not just talking about them slapping on any old second sensor. Nope. The rumor points to two powerhouse cameras, a 48-megapixel main shooter paired with another 48-megapixel ultrawide. I mean, that's a huge leap in resolution and what you can actually do with it. But with Apple, it's never quite that simple, is it? That obsession with being super thin is what created the problem in the first place. And it looks like that same constraint means, yep, there's a catch to this big upgrade. So what's the catch? Well, it's all about what you're not getting. The rumor says don't expect any major design changes. That horizontal camera layout, it's probably staying. And here's the big one, a telephoto zoom lens. Apparently, it's not even being considered. So you're probably asking, why no zoom? Well, it really just comes down to physics and that super, super thin design. All the complex hardware you need for a real optical zoom lens, the prisms, the lenses, it just takes up way too much space. It seems the engineers had to make a choice, and they went with the ultrawide. And get this, even without a telephoto, this is still a massive engineering headache. To pull this off, Apple's engineers have to somehow cram in that second sensor, totally redesign the inside of the phone, and even shrink down the next-gen A20 Pro logic board. No small feat. Okay, so we've got the problem, we've got the rumored fix, and we know the challenges. But the real question here is, how likely is this to actually happen? Is this just smoke and mirrors? Well, according to WCCF Tech, which is where this whole analysis comes from, the probability is a pretty solid 70%. That puts this rumor squarely in the probable camp. So yeah, there's some real weight behind this. And when you break down that score, it's pretty revealing. The source itself and other people confirming it, they're just kind of average. But the technical side of things and the timeline both score a really high 4 out of 5. What that tells us is that from an engineering and production point of view, this rumor makes a ton of sense. And that kind of average corroboration, it just got a major boost from a very, very credible source. We're talking JP Morgan analysts. They've apparently reported that an iPhone Air 2 is in Apple's pipeline. That adds some serious real-world financial weight to what the leaker is saying. All right, so we've looked at the problem, the leaks, the probability. Let's bring it all home. What does all of this actually mean for you if you're maybe thinking about what your next phone is going to be? Here's the bottom line, plain and simple. It really looks like Apple is about to fix the #1 biggest weakness of the original iPhone Air. You should expect a major camera upgrade, but probably not a brand new look. For a lot of people who skipped the first one, this might finally be the iPhone Air that's actually worth waiting for. And all of this leaves us with one last really interesting question. Okay, so Apple's fixing the camera, but in a market that is more competitive than it has ever been, is a better camera really going to be enough to save the entire iPhone Air lineup? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.